welcome to Books for Beneficiaries. My name is Pete Williams, the host of the program on which we talk about the needs of beneficiaries. In estate planning matters, it is the estate owner that takes center stage, and that, of course, is appropriate. It is, after all, their wealth. However, the beneficiary sometimes is left in the dark as to the process. They have needs and questions. They want to ensure that they have their proper inheritance. So I am hopeful that this series will shed some light and give them some information that will help them. I call this series Books for Beneficiaries. So stay tuned for the next chapter and check back for more to come. My name is Pete Williams, the host of the program on which we talk about the needs and tribulations of beneficiaries to estates. This is the third in the three-part series on probate. So if you are a beneficiary involved in a probate process, take a look at the prior two episodes, and this one will sort of wrap things up. And this is where I'm talking about show me the money, cut me a check. But before we do that, we want to make sure that all is good. Just as a quick review, I want to talk about how did we get here. Just remember, we get into probate either because there's a will that was written, which is a specific request to go through probate, or there was no will. So somebody died and they went looking for a will, didn't find it. There's also some other ways to get into probate through faulty estate planning. A faulty trust wasn't done right, so you have to go into probate court to get it corrected, things like that. So we talked about that in prior episodes. We talked about who's in charge of managing the estate. That's an executor if there is a will. When there is no will, then there is something called an administrator. The executor or administrator gathers up the assets. They do appraisals. They pay debts and taxes. They file accountings, and ultimately they distribute property to the beneficiaries. What could be easier? And we talked about the fact that there can be some complications. Just know that you as beneficiary, and I've said this in my prior two episodes, have a right to question the process. You don't have to sit back and take everything. You have a right to an accounting where the executor lists all the assets in the probate estate, and you can question those assets. You can say, hey, this one doesn't belong. There's other assets out there that you're not accounting for. You have a right to talk about how assets have been mismanaged during the probate process, and you can bring forth a right to question the value of assets. There's an accounting that the executor submits to the court, and you can talk about, hey, this piece of property or this asset, this jewelry, this thing is worth a lot more or a lot less than what you say on the accounting. So the executor or administrator has fiduciary duties toward the beneficiaries. The executor or administrator is a fiduciary. And what that means is that a fiduciary is someone who is entrusted to act on behalf of another party. The other party is you, the beneficiary. So that executive administrator must act on your behalf. And often, if there is a will, the owner of the estate, the decedent, named somebody that they thought was trustworthy and would act in the best interest of the beneficiaries that they named in the will. Just to expand on that, fiduciary duties, common definition includes the following. There's a duty of loyalty to act in the beneficiary's interest, not their own. So when they sell something or buy something, it can't be something that benefits them. It's got to benefit the beneficiaries. There's a duty of care. The executor or administrator can't just do things willy-nilly without care in handling those assets. There's homework. There's work to do for an executor. There's a duty of good faith to act with the beneficiary. There's a duty of confidentiality, where they have to protect sensitive information. And they have a duty to disclose. They have the duty to disclose conflicts of interest where they're dealing with property that may benefit them or someone else in their sphere. So they have to tell you about that, and they have to give you a chance to object to it. So the beneficiary has a right to contest, and that is done through bringing an action in probate court. It could be in one of several ways, a couple of ways. One is answering a petition or an accounting. An answer can come back saying, no, I don't agree with this. It can be a proactive petition to say, hey, I think the executor is doing something wrong here. We have the will, we've got the named executor, we've got the assets, and now we're winding things down. If you do not speak up now, you're going to be stuck with the result of this probate process. I will say that the beneficiary is at somewhat of a disadvantage. So if you don't like what the executor is doing, remember the executor has the pot of money. They have the estate. So they can fight a contest if they believe it's in the best interest of the beneficiaries. You, as a beneficiary, have to come up with your own personal money to hire an attorney, generally, to fight something or to make a contest. Now, you can do this on your own, but I will tell you that it is best to hire an attorney who will fight for you in the cases in which maybe you're being taken advantage of or where there's some conflict of interest. The beneficiary is at a disadvantage in information. Beneficiaries sometimes jump the gun. There is information the executor might know that they haven't had a chance to divulge to all the beneficiaries. So when you file a contest in court, make sure you have all the information first. One thing you don't want to do is file something and then say, hey, wait, we're doing a second accounting next week. And so the executor administrator, again, has that advantage. And the third reason that the beneficiary is at a disadvantage creating a contest in probate is that often wills have a no contest clause. A no contest clause, as we learned from a prior episode, is a clause that says, if anybody does anything that undoes or thwarts my wishes in my will, they shall be disinherited. So you got to be very careful when you bring an action against an executive administrator. It's got to be done correctly. That's why, again, I think hiring an attorney, you can do this without triggering the no contest clause. But you certainly have a right to speak up, and speaking up is important. So now we've got a will, we've got an executor, we've gone through, we've collected the assets, we've paid taxes, we've paid debts, and now it's time to cut up the pie. Assets are liquidated and checks are cut. Problems happen sometimes when there are in-kind distributions. Assets are not sold, they're given. So Johnny gets the house. Well, how much do we give to Janie? How much money? We've got to have a good appraisal, and sometimes prepaid taxes and expenses come into the factor. Sometimes sentimentality or heirlooms become a problem because the house has been in the family for so many years, or the jewelry has been in the family. And believe me, in my practice, I've seen some things that one would think are not all that important, but it has sentimental value. So how to divide those things up and be fair to everybody can be a problem. So this is toward the end now. We're going through and saying, okay, here's what we're doing. I mentioned last time that, who is to pay the debts? Who's to pay the taxes on this? So if Johnny gets the house and Janie gets cash and the debts come along, what does it mean that Johnny gets the house? Does he get the house free and clear without paying any of the credit card bills? Probably not. But there are some issues sometimes with non-probate assets, such as joint tenancy accounts, pay on death accounts, where the question becomes, who pays the debts, who pays the taxes, and does it come out of those other assets? If I have a $10,000 pay on death account at a bank and I leave that $10,000 to Joey, does that mean Joey gets a clean $10,000 without paying any debts? And that means that the other beneficiaries in the probate estate pay all the debts? That's something you need to check with your attorney. So there it is. All things have been argued about, and we've gone over, and people, I want to say people are happy, but often in these cases, people are not happy. It's one of those, probate distribution sometimes can be a case where, if everybody's a little bit unhappy, then it's the executor has done a good job. The executor petitions for a distribution, and the beneficiary can actually contest that petition and say, wait a minute, we're not quite done yet. There's some loose ends here. But ultimately, there's going to be an order from the judge that says, hey, yeah, distribute these assets this way. Johnny gets the house. Johnny has to pay so much in prepaid taxes. Johnny has to pay some of the credit card bill. And then Janie gets cash value of the house. And by the way, it's important to know because you as beneficiary are going to sign off on that deed. You're going to, when you get that check for $100,000, you're going to have to sign off to say, look, I've got no more objections. I'm good with this. I'm done. So if you have any objections, then you need to speak up before you sign off. Once you sign off, it's done. And then they close the estate and the executors are released to their duties and you're paid. And you go off and take your estate and do what you want with it. So I want to thank you very much. This has been a 3.5 part series on probate. My next episodes are going to be about trust. We're going to talk about pay on death accounts. We're going to talk about joint tenancy, what that means and ramifications and other things. This is a very quick summary of what the probate process is about. And I look forward to the next time. Thanks very much.